For more on the implications of this U.S. strike, we want to bring in Santino Regilme. He is an associate professor of international relations at the University of Leiden. And he has recently written an op-ed entitled "Numbers Over Rights: How Trump's Drug War Travels." And I'm grateful for you being here. You know, the president himself posted that video. And for Americans looking at this, or other people that are the victims of drug smugglers, they might look at this with sheer simplicity and say, look, the president is getting tough. You say something different, though, that this really is a game changer in terms of the war, in terms of the way the war on drugs will be prosecuted.
Indeed. Well, thanks a lot for the opportunity to be here. There are several aspects here. Number one would be the legality of the strike, right? And the second is about the human rights implications, right? So in terms of the legality, the U.S. strike on a civilian vessel in international waters bypasses due process, raising serious questions about, under international law and violating the most basic human right, which is the right to life. Remember that these are suspected drug traffickers, and they also have the right to due process like any other human persons. And that is the big question here. The second part is also about the idea of framing these traffickers, suspected drug traffickers, as narco-terrorists. A key aspect here is that calling a suspect or a human person as narco-terrorist does not give the U.S. government a license to kill. At the very least, it strips people of their human rights protections guaranteed through through international law, and that includes the United States government that is expected to be compliant with those expectations.
Yeah, and to pardon the pun, this is uncharted territory even for the United States, who, as I said, was quite aggressive in prosecuting the war on drugs and still is. And I point to your writing here saying that, the most urgent corrective is to abandon the fiction that equates militarized punitive drug enforcement with public safety. You argue that, look, the drug problem is a public health issue in the United States.
Indeed. And the problem here is that there are decades of militarized drug policy. The United States government has provided a lot of military aid and different forms of assistance to South American countries and many other countries in the global South. But this is largely through militarized approaches, right? So, and there's a lot of the problems in terms of narcotic drug trade is really about three issues. So the first one is about supply, right? There is a growing number of consumption demand from the United States. And this is largely based on fentanyl and other types of synthetic opioids, which is not really relevant in the case of Venezuela. Number two, there's also the question of particularly the reasons why people actually get into drugs. And this is largely because of very serious structural conditions such as poverty, economic inequality, and lack of economic opportunities, both in the United States, but also in drug-producing countries, at least for specific drugs, in this case, relevant to South American countries. So I think that's a key issue.
And of course, it is a key issue, and it's a key issue that's been debated for decades. And Americans, many of them, these voters have said, look, it hasn't worked. Whatever we've done hasn't worked. If you believe that the president and his defense secretary, or apparently now the secretary of war, will have the mandate to continue on with more of these operations, what are your fears in terms of how it will transform the region?
Yeah, I think my fear is that this particular instance of summer execution, for lack of a better term, in international waters in the Caribbean is a start or a pretext for something much more serious, particularly a more intensified military intervention in the case of the United States to the domestic politics of South American countries, and in this case, Venezuela. In fact, possibly violating, territorial integrity of sovereign states. So that is, I think, one of the key issues relevant to this particular incident or crisis.
Mm-hmm. And it certainly does risk escalation, and you can see that just in the dramatic operation that they released the video of there. And I should say, again, the Secretary of War not saying that it will be the last operation. Santino Regilme, we'll have to leave it there for now. Thanks so much. Now,